Welcome back to Beg, Borrow, Steal. Big episode today. We're going to bring you a Champions League group stage game against Chelsea. And then after that, depending on the result, we're going to decide what happens next. So as the tone of the intro indicated, I think we're in a spot of bother. I did try to warn viewers before the Juventus game in the last episode that we weren't looking great. I think beating the old lady 3-0 in the Champions League might have papered over the cracks because our form has started to suffer in the fixtures that we've played since that Juventus match. And I think it might be time to make a tactical change. However, it could be that the downturn that we've had in form is because I started tweaking based on some of the feedback that we got from the comment section after the Juventus match. The consensus was that we were having trouble with our Carrileros in a three-man midfield. They weren't providing enough support over on the flanks for our fullbacks. We were getting overrun out wide. It was contributing to the poor ratings that some of our fullbacks were getting. And maybe we needed to make some changes. So we've tinkered and we've tried new things out in the game since that Juventus match. And I don't think they've worked. In fact, we have lost quite a few games since that Juve game. So today, against Chelsea, away at Stamford Bridge in the Champions League, we're reverting to the system that has been oh so successful for the best part of 2 seasons now. We're going to go back to the Carrileros. We're going to bring Rossi in as a pressing forward rather than playing Dybala, because Dybala is not having a good time at the moment, either in front of goal or with the average ratings that he's scoring. So instead, we're going to give our old faithful one last go. It worked against Juve. Could it work away against Chelsea? Let's get out there and find out. And then after the game, it should help us decide what direction we're going in next. So the Chelsea lineup is going to be pretty frightening. Lukaku will be up front. Players like Musiala are playing for them now as well. And we have got players like Landa on the bench. That at least gives you a little bit of confidence. You'll see from the table on screen that we're second in our Champions League group. So things are looking pretty promising there. But this is the second game we've played against Chelsea since that we've been away, since the Juventus episode. Well, we did play Chelsea at home. We'll show you how we got on in that game at the end of this one. We're doing a bit of a topsy-turvy episode. We're going to play the game at the front, and then afterwards we're going to have the discussion, because I think I got my fingers burnt in the last episode, me coming back with tears about a crisis. Then you go and beat Juventus 3-0. It makes you look like you were crying wolf. But I think I was right. We didn't look good in the games leading up to the Juve match. We've certainly not looked good in the game since it, including the game against Chelsea. And I think it might just be that we need to have a bit of a tactical evolution. Maybe an evolution, maybe a tactical revolution. But I think we're best placed getting this fixture done first, seeing how our old tactic performs against another one of Europe's top sides, before deciding exactly where we're going to go next. It might be that we only need to design a second tactic, perhaps. Maybe something that we're going to play against mid-table and down teams in La Liga in order to try and break them down. And this tactic might still serve us well, maybe in Europe and maybe when we play the top teams. Or maybe we just need something a bit more seismic than that. Maybe the time has come for us to completely evolve the way that we play. For 8 seasons now, our DNA has been based around work rate, determination, bravery, and more mental attributes than technical. Maybe if we're going to take the leap and become a top team in Spain and try and win a trophy, we might need to adjust what our approach is in terms of our DNA. But it's all for discussion after this game, because we've made a reasonable start to it. We're 20 minutes into the game. We're not a goal down yet, which I think is positive. And we've actually been forward a couple of times as well, which is more than we did when we played them at home, by the way. And Makuma's actually put us into a surprise lead. This is why I've brought the episode in the other direction and started with the game, because if we were to beat Chelsea after I've been bemoaning our tactic once more, well, you lot would think I'm some kind of fraud. Instead, we're going to see how it plays today before we make any big decisions. Rossi, back in the starting lineup, preferred to Dybala, lays one on a plate for young Brendan McComb, and he has slotted into the corner of the net. And that is a huge goal for us. You can see players like Mount are still in their team. Reece James is still their starting right back. They've got quality all over the pitch. way in excess of what we can put out on the field. And we have, at least for a short amount of time, taken the lead against them. 21 minutes on the clock. Time to pause, I think. Throw out a shout. In fact, let's just check that this is the end of the highlight. It is indeed. Let's praise the players for taking the lead against Chelsea. And look, on the balance of play, you'd say we're in this game. We've obviously got the higher XG, having had that easy chance to score, but we've had 3 shots equal to them. Granted, one of theirs is more on target. But we're doing pretty well. 34 minutes. Can we just try and hold out to half-time? As Lukaku blazes one over the bar. If we could hold out a little longer, just get into the break. 1-0 in the lead. That would be a huge result. They've got Christensen, and he has rolled his defender. Is the referee having a little look at this? We could get bailed out, you know. The referee's there. There is a VAR review. I'm not sure what for. Is it offside? I didn't see an offside, and the goal is rewarded. Christensen makes a run. He's well onside, and, well, he has played it to the near post past Barossi, and we could not hold on until half-time. And we're tied at 1-1. Diego Rosa has a go. That's a long way out. And Mendy's still in goal for them as well. They've got a lot of their old stagers still in the team after 8 seasons. And you know what? Having tried to hold out into a 1-0 lead until the break, if Chelsea take the lead here, we're actually going to be behind at the break, and they are in. It's Lukaku. He's got the ball through. It's out to Reece James. This is perhaps the lack of support out wide that the comment section were talking about by playing that central midfield 3. I think they're right. The Carraleros are not doing enough to support the fullbacks. And we are vulnerable down the flanks. We're 2 against 1, outnumbered on both the left and the right-hand side. And it's starting to take its toll on us, I think, in this fixture and in the season in general. However, 1-1 with Chelsea, who are top of this group, is by no means a disaster, but you can see that they have stretched the XG. It's time to give the boys a little bit of encouragement, I think, because if we could hold on to a draw, it's going to be a big result in the shape of this group. We have made a little half-time change, by the way. We've brought on Hjulmand as our defensive midfielder. Pacheco had got a little bit of a knock in that first half. His fitness was right down in the red. And I think you need 11 fit players when you're out there against Chelsea. So we've taken him off. Have we just given away a penalty, by the way? The referee's blown his whistle. What has happened in the box? Have we pushed somebody? Is it a handball? These are always given. They are always given. Who has done what in that? Oh, it's Koulibaly. What he's done, I'm not entirely sure. I can only assume that he's just shoved somebody as that free kick comes in. We're relying on Barossi. Rarely has he ever saved a penalty. He's up against Romelu Lukaku. And he gets absolutely nowhere near it. And now we are 2-1 down against Chelsea. And despite a bright little start that gave us some encouragement, I'm now fearing we could be on the end of a little bit of a beating here. So what have we been doing in recent fixtures then? Well, the comment section after the Juve game said it's your Carraleros that are the problem. You're getting exposed down the flanks. There's not enough support for your fullbacks. You've got to do something about it. So we've experimented. We've tried some ball-winning midfielders out there to try and get them to go and close down the opposition. We've tried making sure that they're pressing the opposition wide players and the fullbacks. We've also tried playing central midfielders on support who have absolutely no player instruction, so I could tweak their roles a little bit more, getting them to close down more, tackle harder. It's led to quite a poor run of form, and if we go on to lose this game, you'll see after the fixture that it's going to be our 4th result that's ended in defeat since we saw you for the Juve game, and that was only about 7 or so fixtures ago. And I think we're in a little bit of a spot of bother, and I think this could be a season where maybe we don't qualify for Europe and we start to slip down the rankings, start regressing really, unless we're decisive and we make a change now. I know some people, when they're playing Football Manager, don't like to change tactics. They have a tactic that works and they just build the team, keep improving the playing roster, maybe make slight tweaks until they finally get it right. I'm not one of those players, as we pause the game on 62 minutes, that likes to persist with a tactic if it's clearly not working. And one thing that's not working this afternoon is our mate Sergio Rosanas at left back. So we're going to bring Ndaba on. That's our second change made. We'll keep the third up our sleeve. I like to keep changing tactics every season or two in order to try and keep finding extra ways to squeeze more out of the squad that you've got. We're limited in the squad that we've got because of the transfer policy that we've got of not spending any money on transfers. As Rossi, my goodness, he has been outpaced by Christensen, who must be the same age as him, in a quite alarming way, and Chelsea are into the highlights again. So I'm not opposed to ripping up our tactic and starting again and finding a new way of playing if we think it might be able to nudge us on to the next level. This tactic has certainly helped us overperform thus far. The lowest wage budget in La Liga, odds of 2,000 to 1 to win La Liga. We should have been relegated in our first season and we qualified for Europe. We still should have been relegated in our second season and we qualified for the Champions League group stages. But I think we might need to make a change. And in this game, we are now 3-1 down, and I think it's time for our last sub of the game. So there's only one man you turn to at a moment like this. Diego Rosa is playing a 6.6. Lander is, of course, on in his place. Who would have thought Lander would ever be playing at Stamford Bridge in the Champions League? As Romelu Lukaku blazes an effort wide. Having started pretty well at the start of the first half, we've barely had a shot since. Let's try and sting the boys back into life. We'll demand a little bit more from them. Our mentality is now up on positive, so I don't think you want to open yourselves up a little bit more than that. We've given away a free kick on the edge of the box. Are they going to curl them into a 4-1 lead? They've clipped the outside of the post. We're getting lucky not to be more than 3-1 down here. They've got an XG of above 3, 22 shots, 15 on target. We've only had 39% possession. We're playing one of the best teams in Europe. But that is the performance I feared we might have, and I think the goal that we scored early might have given me a little bit of false hope. I think it's time for us to discuss where we go next tactically. So now that Chelsea game is done, here's the run of form that we've been on. It looks better than it is, and it doesn't look that great to begin with. Since that Juventus game, we looked to have got a comfortable win over Celta Vigo. It was anything but. Brendan McComb got a very late goal for us to give us a 2-0 win. Up until that point, we could easily have got pegged back to 1-1 after Milanese gave us the lead in the second half. But we could have been behind at half-time in that game. We didn't play well at all. We just got a little bit fortunate. In the next game, that wasn't so much the case. We played much better in this game. You can tell from the average rating of the players, we looked pretty good. But we were up against Granada, hardly one of the top sides in La Liga. But we played well. But since then, we've not played well in any of the games. We lost to Chelsea 1-0 at home. We held out all the way until the 88th minute. I thought we were going to get a point, but it was like the Alamo. Look at the ratings of our players. Only our keeper got a rating above a 7, and he got bang on a 7. Everybody else was poor. I think we had 3 shots in this entire game. It was not good. In the next game, it's our worst performance of the season. Granted, it all followed the sending off of Morten Hjulmand, who I bought on at half-time. He got sent off 30 seconds having just come on. And then they ran riot and scored 4 goals in the second half and made us look incredibly ordinary. We then lost 1-0 to Athletic Bilbao. They scored incredibly late on. But again, look at the performance of some of our players. We did not play well and we did not look like scoring. In the next game, it wasn't an awful lot better, to be honest. We beat Betis 1-0, but substitute Kieran Murray came on and scored the goal in the 4th minute of stoppage time at the end. And then you've just seen us look very, very ordinary against Chelsea in the Champions League. A game in which we only had, did it finish with 5 shots during the entire game? It did indeed. And you'll have to go back and check for me. Did we have an effort on goal during the second half? I'm not confident that we did. So do we now dispense with our tactic and go with something radically different? So this is the problem that I am faced with. I am struggling in this shape to get the support out to the wing backs that they need. We could move them to fullback so that they are more static and don't go forward as much, but they're still going to get outnumbered 2-1. I thought a Carrilero would be, as the description describes, someone that will shuttle out into those wide areas and help close down wingers and fullbacks. But maybe They're only shuttling out there in attacking moves and not really doing that job in a defensive capacity, and instead falling into this quite narrow shape. So I've tried tweaking with central midfielders on support so that I can have a greater say in how they play offensively and defensively, and it's led to some of the defeats that you saw in that recent run of form. So do we just dispense with this tactic and go with something brand new? Do we dispense with the idea of having to have two players up front now that we've got McComb, who's managed to score 9 goals in 11 games in the league this season? Maybe he could play as a lone front man. Do we start to try and get some width back into the team? Do we try and play with fewer players in midfield? In fact, having had a little precursory think about this, do we change things up entirely? Might we go from a back 4 to a back 3? Might we go from a 4-man central midfield to just a 2-man central midfield? Bringing in some wide players that might be able to offer additional cover for us down on the flanks, but also try and get forward and support a lone front man as well? I'm not entirely sure. You know this squad by now. It's been pretty similar for the last 3 or 4 seasons. What would you do if you were in charge? Would you perhaps just persist with this formation because it did qualify, one of the smallest clubs in Spain, for the Champions League? Maybe we're foolish to throw it out just because of a blip in form. Or like me, do you see the writing on the wall and would you make a change now? Would your change be a 5 at the back system? Maybe potentially in some games pulling in a third central midfielder and having the luxury of 2 men up front? Or would you stick with a 4 at the back system? And perhaps you can advise me down in the comment section below the tactic you would play. There is, of course, one tactic that we really don't want to go anywhere near, and that is the 4-2-3-1. Regardless of how successful it could be, we don't want to do things the easy way in this save. And if this is the tactic that has the most joy against the AI in Football Manager, we want to try and avoid it. We want to see whether we can do things a more difficult route. So don't give me ideas of playing a 4-2-3-1. Not that I can ever get a number 10 to work in the last 3 iterations of Football Manager. Give me your ideas about an alternate tactic that you could play that you think might help fire us back up the league. We are not out of things, but we need to turn this run of form around. So I'm going to be reading your comments and responding and hopefully building something that might be able to take us to the next level in Beg, Borrow, Steal.